for me, stewardship is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that pours over into the work I do every day as a transactional attorney and leading our title company.
Welcome to Everything Real in Fredericksburg. From local government to economic development and real estate. If it's happening in Fredericksburg, Texas, we talk about it. Now your host, Lee Ann Baily.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on Everything Real in Fredericksburg. I'm Lee Ann Baily. I'm a realtor here in Fredericksburg for Portfolio Real Estate. The purpose of the goal is to inform our listeners about the real things going on in Fredericksburg. And when I say that, just the everyday life and getting to know the characters in town. Today, I have a special guest. It means a lot to me to be able to educate buyers and sellers on the process of buying and selling a home. So today I invited Gordon Sauer. He's with Hill Country Title. And welcome, Gordon. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Leanne. It's great to be here.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, so Gordon, I might have messed up your intro a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your position with Hill Country Title and who is Hill Country Title anyway?
Oh, and also just maybe a brief introduction so the audience knows a little bit about who I am.
Yes,
what
please.
I do. Okay, sure. Well, I was born and raised here in Gillespie County, Leanne, and very grateful for that. Very quickly, I attended Texas A&M University, got a degree in animal science in '66, went on then to law school. My goal in my heart was to get back to Fredericksburg, and I couldn't really make an animal science degree work for me in Fredericksburg. So I went to law school, and I really enjoyed it. It was a great experience. I did well, came back to Fredericksburg in 1969 and started my law practice. I'll be completing 54 years as a transactional lawyer this November.
Wow.
So it's been as the old cowboy said, it's been a good ride.
I like that. Yeah, it's been a minute.
I am, as you said, president of Hill Country Titles.
That's one of the things that I really wanted to talk about with you coming on the podcast is you kind of have a little history of Fredericksburg, not just on the transaction side, but living here, growing up here. And when I trust people to help me with business, I want to know a lot of history because it's important to not just forget about the past, but incorporate in the business moving forward. And on the transaction side, you guys are so good about knowing properties. The girls that have worked for you have worked there for a long time also. When I work with clients, I want them to know and trust good people to take care of their transactions and bring in some history.
Okay.
Talk about that.
And probably break that into two parts, if I may. I think just in terms of my focus, my core values, I learned very, very quickly in the practice of law that I was destined to be a transactional attorney. I had absolutely no love, no desire for trial at all. In trial, particularly if it ends up going to trial, somebody wins, somebody loses.
Yes.
My desire always is win-win.
Amen.
And so I like that. So the acquiring, starting, finding, establishing a title company just seemed to be a natural fit with my transactional law practice. So I formed the title company, Hill Country Titles, in 1970, and we've just completed just last month in June, actually, 53 years of serving the real estate and lender industry here in the Hill Country. We have 25 employees right now. We are licensed in 5 counties: Gillespie County, Mason County, Edwards County, Kimball County, and Blanco County. We have 6 office locations right now in Fredericksburg, Mason, Junction, Rock Springs, Johnson City, and Blanco. So we've grown a lot over the last 53 years, and we're in view of our expansion over the last 2 or 3 years, we're in the process of rebranding our organization right now, and we'll have a new logo coming out before the end of the year.
Yeah, that's exciting.
We're excited about that, and we're excited about the growth. The interesting thing, Leanne, is we've been in the title company's been here 53 years. I didn't start expanding until 5 years ago.
I know.
So for 45, 46, 47 years, I was quite content to just work in Gillespie County, serve our people here. And but these opportunities to expand just appeared, And so we pursued them, and I'm glad that we have.
I'm glad you have too. And I think you're being a little humble because I think there was a need. And, I know I sell outside of Fredericksburg and Gillespie County into Mason and Junction, and I've even sold property there in Rock Springs. And I would have liked to have, you like to have the people that do a good job for you and know history. And so I think people were begging, please, Gordon, come into these cities and counties. And I think that's important because you're well respected in the community, and people know that, when you do work a transaction, it's very thorough. And there, even in Rock Springs, there became an easement issue, and you guys helped us out and recognize it and helped the buyer through that transaction. So that's important.
I recall. Thank you. Yeah, that is true. We were actually encouraged and invited in several instances to come in and bring the Hill Country brand of service to those areas. And so that's been fun. It's been exciting. It's been rewarding.
Yes.
So as far as history, that's basically the history of, I guess, myself, the title company, what we do. Perhaps a little later, I can give you a little more personal or history as it relates to the town, the things I like about Fredericksburg. Even one of my favorite memories that you suggested that I might give some thought to. I'd love to share that later. But
yeah, absolutely. I always like to end with the personal stuff because it gets the business out of the way. But so tell me on the business front again. When I work with buyers and sellers, they don't always know the purpose of the title company.
Yes.
What is your, what is the process? Why do I need title insurance? What do easements mean? Why is it important to me? These are all things that we deal with every day in real estate. And so I really, when I was asking, questions, what do I want you to come talk about? Title insurance really stood out because I think people are very still unsure, and maybe we've just not told them, or maybe they've fallen on deaf ears. But will you tell us a little bit about some of the processes that you guys do when a contract comes into escrow?
Absolutely, and you're right. A lot of people, I would say, probably most buyers, they've heard the term title insurance. They've definitely heard about a title company because that's where they go to close.
Yes.
But I think often they really don't understand what the title insurance aspect is and what it does. So I'll try to cover that. First of all, just to answer the question of what is title insurance. Title insurance is basically an indemnity contract. So that if someone buys a piece of property and it turns out that back in the title history, we refer to that as a chain of title going back, if there was a forgery, if there was a probate, and all the heirs were not properly located. And so now we have a transaction. A buyer is buying property, putting up a lot of money, and wants to make sure that he has clear title, good title. So that's where title insurance comes in. It's an indemnity agreement to reimburse someone for a loss of title, or perhaps maybe the title search missed something, like an oil and gas reservation. So now it's apparent that the buyer doesn't have everything he thought he was getting.
Yes.
Those kinds of things can result in claims being made upon our underwriter. We represent underwriters to be indemnified for their loss. So that's sort of an academic definition of title insurance. What do we do? What is the process? Great question. I'd love to talk about it. When a contract is escrowed, of course, files are immediately opened. GF numbers are assigned. Escrow officers assigned. You know the routine because you receive
my
this.
My favorite part.
Yes, you receive this weekly. We hope monthly for sure. And then the file that processes, the first thing that occurs is we do an in-depth title search. The history, all of the history that's affected a particular piece of property, all the way back to patent. Wow. And I want to explain that. The patent out of the state of Texas is the first conveyance that occurred to a piece of property. And we go back. Every policy that we've issued in 53 years, our title search goes back to patent. That's critically important. and I'll tell you that the trend in Texas has almost departed. Most title transactions in the state of Texas today, particularly in the urban areas, they do a 25-year search. They go back 25 years.
It's not that long.
No, when we go back to patent and searching the title history to a particular tract of land, we're picking up oil and gas and mineral reservations that occurred in 1930 here in Gillespie County. We're picking up all restrictive covenants.
Yes.
We're going through every probate of any owner who died while he was in ownership. We go back to all those things to make sure that those estates were properly handled and assets distributed according to the wills. So we search all of that. We look for easements. Those may be egress easements, where someone has a right to travel over a piece of property. They could be utility easements. So there's just a number of things, and we search back all the way to patent. So if you're buying a 10-acre tract of land that may have been a part of a 640-acre patent out of the state of Texas, we track every transaction going back to around 1850, 1860, that 10 acres may have been impacted by. So that's our title search process. The escrow process also very, very important because that's the disbursement of funds. I mean, you talk about other people's money, that's other people's money.
Yes.
And so we're dispersing, and in our company, we're very fortunate. I won't mention the number, but we disperse many, many, many hundreds of millions of dollars a year of other people's money. So parties need to know that their funds are safe and secure, and that the funds disbursements are occurring according to a very well-defined process.
Yeah. I think sometimes we, as realtors, we want a quick close. We want to get things moving through. Like, Gordon, how quick can you get us closed? We want, we got cash. We got to get that, And so it's taken me a little while as I've been a realtor for almost 10 years, and I've learned it's really good to slow down and let you guys do that work because it's so valuable. Let you do the research. It's not to say you can't get it done quickly, but the point I'm trying to make is it's important to get that backlog of transactions and that title policy all the way through patent.
It is, Lee Ann. Thank you for bringing that up and for understanding that. We've really seen in the past 10, 15 years, tremendous pressure on title companies to turn around. What's your turnaround time? What is your turnaround? I mean, we hear that daily.
Yes, I know.
And it is important. I understand because there's other parties involved. There's surveyors, there's lenders, there's attorneys. I get that.
Yeah.
But whenever somebody starts saying, well, our turnaround time is 2 days, our turnaround time is 1 day, you're now starting to hear things like our turnaround time is 4 hours.
Oh, gosh.
Now, I'm a transactional attorney, so I rely heavily on the work that title companies do in the title research. So as an attorney representing buyers and sellers, I'm less interested in a 1 or 2 day turnaround time than I am the accuracy of the work that we're producing.
Yes,
I cannot represent a buyer in the manner in which I like if I'm dealing with a rush job. Yeah, I'm glad to wait 4 days, 5 days, 7 days for a good work product.
That's why I like you. No, that is why I trust Hill Country Title, because it's a process, and that's what we do and need to do as realtors is guide our buyers and sellers and inform them of what the time frame looks like.
There's another aspect to the service. Is the word I would use that we provide. We're and one, I guess, caveat that I would just suggest to your listeners: always close your transactions through a title company.
Yes,
we see not often, but we occasionally see for sale by owner type transactions. It would be very foolish for those people to try to close their transaction themselves, kind of like in the old day, I hand you a deed and you hand me my check. Yeah. That's very unwise, and particularly in the values that we see in Gillespie County and really all over Texas today. Very, very unwise because you don't have the benefit of the title search. You don't have the you don't have the title policy indemnity. You don't have the rules and regulations that apply to the disbursement of funds.
Yeah.
So you forego all that. Very unwise.
Yeah.
So,
We always say, real estate is the biggest investment you're going to make. Most likely, that is,
oh yes.
You're going to spend more money on that than anything else. So it's important to get it all right. I think have all the right people in place.
Because of our processes, Lee Ann, I mentioned that title insurance is really an indemnity agreement, so that if things are overlooked or not handled well, there's an underwriter in the back. In other words, we write for like 8 underwriters, large companies. First American, Fidelity, the largest title insurance company in the world. First American, probably the second largest title insurance company in the world. We write for them. We write for Chicago. We write for Texan Title, WFG, National. So we have like 8 underwriters that really have the risk. And in that whole process, and along with this, I mentioned about the disbursement of funds, we're a regulated industry by the Texas Department of Insurance. So we are audited. We have very strict rules we have to follow. So we're audited once a year by our underwriters. That's 8 audits a year.
Goodness.
We're audited once by the state of Texas. And we have to submit an independent audit annually to TDI by our independent auditors. So we're audited and producing audits like 10 to 11 times a year. So we're really under the microscope, which is a good thing.
Yes, the scrutiny is what keeps people honest.
Absolutely.
You know that old saying, keeps you honest. That's not that you get what I'm saying,
yes. And we welcome these audits because it's rare that we have an audit, particularly the state audit, that we don't learn something from that.
Yeah.
They will pick up on a practice, a procedure.
Yes.
The term best practices is real popular in the medical world. Well, it's coming in the title.
Yes.
So they'll point out. They may not sanction us about it, but they'll point out, in this file,
You bet.
if this one, here's what might have happened. Here's what could have been done better.
Yeah.
This is what could have been prevented. So we welcome those audits.
You bet. That's good to hear. I like that you brought that out. One of the things that you said just now, that a little bit before, you talked about surveyors and lenders, and I don't know that we always think about all the components that go into that title work too, like the easements and surveys. And I mean, you guys are looking at those. There's surveys that need to be reviewed for closing to see that there's no encroachments. And I've had to come to you before and say, well, Gordon, this is, this building is encroaching on a setback. What do I do? And usually the title company will help guide me and my client into the best way, like for a variance or something. So that's another thing that I've learned over the years. It's very important from the title company, is recognizing those discrepancies and things that my buyer would need to know moving forward.
Appreciate you bringing it up. And if I may comment on that, and I say this with all humility, because of my 54 years transactional background and experience, I'm well trained in the field of land law.
Yes.
So I have the opportunity to detect when there are issues with a piece of property.
Yes.
And how to cure those issues, to make sure that when that really, I mentioned that title insurance was an indemnity agreement, so that in the event of a loss, they get their money back. Who wants to get their original purchase price back 5 years from now when the property's doubled in value?
Yeah.
So what's more important to me than that indemnity contract is for me to know that when they're walking out of one of our 6 offices, the transaction it's right. It's been done right. We've eliminated the risks, and so that's and I think that's also been one of the reasons why we've experienced tremendous growth here in Fredericksburg. The local realtors, the lenders, they trust the process. They trust the work that we do, and they trust me.
Yeah,
and
trust is big.
And I say that with all humility.
Yes. Well, you're very humble on those sort of things. I appreciate it. Who do I call? Gordon's the one I call all the time. So is there anything else that you would want a consumer to know, on the transaction side of things, that outside of what we've just spoke about? Any other hot topics or do's and don'ts?
Well, I think that one thing that I would like, and I like that you use the word consumer. So one thing that I want to address very briefly, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about our town, Fredericksburg.
Yes, that's where I'm
and
headed.
even maybe a little bit, you asked me if I might think about one of my favorite memories. I'd love to get into that.
Okay, good.
But to your listeners, to all consumers, there is a wave of fraud
Yes.
that has hit our nation, and it's trillions, not millions or billions. It's trillions.
Incredible.
These people are so smart, and it's night and day.
Yeah.
Our system is hit, according to IT people, over 100,000 times a day, trying to find any other way to get in. So, consumers should be very, very careful. One is, and I'll touch on kind of the fraud that we've been working on trying to prevent for years and years and years, and that is diverting a buyer's funds to the fraudster rather than to the title company escrow account, and how they do that.
Yeah.
They get into people's personal emails, and the next thing they know, the fraudster is making direct contact with that individual, telling them to bring their funds to the title company tomorrow when the closing is not for 4 days. And you know why they do that.
Yes.
Because occasionally someone, which happened several years ago here, the people brought $60,000 into the title company 4 days ahead of closing. So we're ready to close. Our escrow officer contacts the people and says, by the way, we need to have your funds. We're going to be closing in 4 days. We need to have your funds. And the people said, we've already wired them. Bingo. And the reason the fraudsters do it 3 or 4 days ahead of time, takes about 28 hours to clear the country.
Yeah.
Once it clears the country, it's gone.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
crazy, isn't it?
that's a fraud that's been going on. The latest fraud that's really the fraudsters, they're smart. They know that the title companies, the banks, everybody's put in all security systems known to man. But even that's not enough. But so they get tired of they get tired of doing the same old thing. So now the big fraud today is an absentee property owner.
Oh, yes.
You have some people that could own a 10-acre tract of land or a lot here in town, and they're absentee. They only come once or twice a year.
Yeah.
Weeds are grown up, no activity, clearly an absentee owner. So those fraudsters will then go and contact a realtor and list that property, even though they're not the owner, and take it all the way through a closing, and the fraudster walking away with the funds, the buyer thinking that he has just bought a piece of property. And that's where title insurance comes in.
Yes.
In that kind of a situation, the title underwriters would write that buyer a check. And the true owner still sitting over in Montana, getting ready to make his next annual visit to Fredericksburg, only to find out that somebody else is living in the house.
Yeah. I didn't believe it, and it's happening so much. I thought, there's no way, and it is. So I'm glad that you guys are on top of that, and you guys are always just a step ahead and forward thinking. I know sometimes it's hard to be ahead of these fraudsters, but being in a small town, sometimes you think, oh, they're just small town, they don't know. But you guys are not small town when it comes to all the security. I know it's so frustrating sometimes to people. Well, I have to log into a secure server, or I can't send this over the email, and I just want to be, but it's not worth it. It
isn't, Lee Ann, and I tell you, that's we don't get much pushback anymore. Right. But 10 years ago, we go to things like Zix encryption, things of this nature, and people can't, they can't open it up. And I understand, Lee Ann, you've heard me say publicly, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Yes.
I don't know how to turn on a computer, and I never will.
Yes.
Okay. I don't even know. I don't know what YouTube is. All right. But the point is, we had to bring those measures in.
Yes.
I'll tell you the latest, just within a month or two, about the absentee owner. A fraudster contacted a realtor in one of our counties and directed him to a property to go examine the property and get a listing on the property. They wanted to sign a listing on a property.
Yeah.
The fraudster thought it was an unimproved property because when he checked the tax rolls as of January 1, it wasn't improved. Yeah. The realtor drives up to the property. Here's a large home under construction. Wow. Realtor walks in, realtor walks in, talks to the contractor. I need to take some pictures. Mm-hmm. I'm looking around. I want to see. I'm getting ready to list this property. Yeah. All of which seemed very, very strange to the contractor. Right. Contractor wisely and immediately contacted the owner. Are you trying to sell your property? Yes. No. Well, there's a realtor here that says they're getting a listing on your property. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it happens.
It does. It does. It's the strangest thing ever. So it's exhausting, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Thank you for staying on top of it. Goodness gracious. Well, all right. So if you don't have anything else to talk about business, let's talk about
Fredericksburg.
Yeah, let's talk about Fredericksburg.
Let's talk about Fredericksburg. Great town. Just love this town. It's I was born and raised, as you know, in a little community about 20 miles out of Fredericksburg. Went to high school here in Fredericksburg. But I've seen so much. But even with all that we've seen, there's still such a rich heritage. It's still a friendly community. It's busy, but it also can provide downtime. Mm-hmm. A lot of people come here for that. Yes. And so it's vibrant. There's so much commerce going on, and it's good commerce that's going on in our community. As you know, we host many functions here. We're widely known. I hardly go anywhere, even out of state. People say, "Where are you from?" I live in Fredericksburg. Oh, Fredericksburg, beautiful town. Love that town. And yes, so sir. It's a great town. As you know, we have much to offer here for a small. I don't know. I've never been in another small town where I have the choice of restaurants, fine dining, and now the wineries and things like that. So the town has so much to offer.
It does.
It's a great place. Also, and you'll appreciate this because of what Clinton does. This city and this county, our county and our city governments, they have been proactive in the 45 of wise planning, going way back. Lee Ann, do you know that 45 years ago, nearly every mile of county road in Gillespie County was paved? One of the few rural counties in Texas that could say that. Yeah. There's counties right next to us today that have hundreds of miles mm-hmm. of unpaved roads. Yeah. Well, and when you think about what Clinton does today as our city manager, mm-hmm. I mean, they've been so wise in the infrastructure planning. Yeah. And so we can handle the expansion and the growth that we're seeing.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. I think sometimes it's a hard job and it's a big burden to bear. I know that the folks that do it don't see it as a burden, but it's a lot. And to know how to handle the growth. And I know we talk a lot about right now about the water situation just in Texas in general, and make sure we have the resources we need moving forward. So thank you for that. I'll be sure to tell him.
Please do. please tell him. So that yes, it's a wonderful place. Being a business attorney, I love commerce, mm-hmm. and so I enjoy the commerce that's occurring. Mm-hmm. But it's a good commerce.
Well, you're something you haven't mentioned. We haven't gotten there yet, but you're not just an attorney. You're a cattle raiser and a rancher, and that's what I like about you too. Wear your boots and jeans, and that speaks to me growing up on the farm and ranch, and so I like that part because you have that. I would imagine when you leave the office and you go home on the land and you have appreciation for the land and the water and the animals, and that puts a different spin on it. I think how you do business, or I think it does for me. I would imagine you as well, how you do business and recognizing the importance of everything that people contribute to the community, because it's not just about going to a desk job every day. You're still making a living raising animals and ranching.
It's a very rewarding, challenging. Goodness, we haven't had a decent rain in 20 months.
Yes.
Except a few months ago. So I mean, it's very challenging, but it's very It's an honorable vocation,
Absolutely.
occupation, and the thing that I like, as you know, I'm on the board of the Texas Southwest Cattle Raisers Association, and our logo is stewards of the land and livestock. And so being in agriculture, particularly ranching, farming, we're stewards.
Amen.
We're stewards of land, we're stewards of animals, and we care about that. And so for me, stewardship is a big thing. And that pours over into the work I do every day
Yes, sir.
as a transaction attorney and leading our title company. I mean, we're stewards, in effect, handling transfers of valuable assets.
Yes.
And I take that
I like
personally
that.
and very seriously.
That is really good. You should use that as your next tagline, because I really love that.
Well, it's true.
Well, stewardship leads to legacy, and I think legacy is important.
Yeah.
And if we don't have stewardship, we can't leave a legacy, and you'll leave a heck of a legacy here.
Well, then talking about legacy, one of the things I'm really excited to share with you. I don't know if you know this or not, but speaking of
I'm
legacy,
excited.
my great grandfather, Wilhelm Sauer, left Germany in late 1845 with 6 children. He was widowed, and he came
Really?
over. Yes, he came over with 6 children. I think the youngest was maybe 6.
Wow.
You should read the stories about crossing the Atlantic. How many people were on these small sail ships?
That's crazy.
75 days to get over here.
Yeah.
And many of them, almost half of them died from cholera.
Yes.
So he lost 3, came over with 6 children. He lost 2 at sea, 2 daughters at sea, landed at Indianola, which at that time was called Indian Point, arrived there. A son died coming from Indianola to Fredericksburg.
Wow.
So he left with the dad and 6 children. He arrived here with 3 children. And one of those was my great grandfather, Johann Friedrich Sauer.
Okay.
And they settled in Fredericksburg, stayed here for a few years, and then they bought a farm and ranch in the Stonewall community. And that farm and ranch is now part of the Lyndon Johnson National Park.
Yes.
And in fact, the log home that he built, and the other adjacent outbuildings, the barns and so forth, they've all been beautifully restored.
Yes.
So you can go to the Sauer Beckman Living History Farm, Google it, and that log house is the log home that my great-grandfather built. And as you know, it's operated today by docents, visited by many, many young children from the area who think that milk comes from a carton. So they arrive at 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
They watch this man with a big floppy
love
hat
it.
and suspenders milking the old Jersey cow.
Yeah.
And there's ladies with long dresses and bonnets out in the garden, hoeing the garden. And they cook the lunch for all the park workers every day in the home that my great-grandfather built. Still no electricity.
Yeah.
They cook over a wood stove, homemade bread, and all that. So it's a living history farm.
It is.
How those people lived in 1920.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's an incredible
that's
story. I
exciting.
like that.
And
Yeah,
I live
it
8
is.
miles from there.
I know you
So
didn't go very far.
So I haven't gone very far
No.
since my great-great-grandfather arrived.
And you have kids and grandkids that haven't gone very far. You have a legacy here for sure.
Yeah.
You have a nice family. Yeah.
I've been blessed.
Yes, sir.
Very, very blessed.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of your kids and grandkids. So I hope that the Sauers continue their legacy here. I think they will.
That reminds me, one of the things that think about when you think of legacy, you think of family traditions. Every year at Thanksgiving, my family gathers, sit down dinner. Sometimes we have over 40 people. And
That's
just
great.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Actually, 40 is kind of small when you think about all the Sauers in town. You need to grow that a little bit. Just kidding.
I have 15 grandchildren.
Yeah, I love it.
2 great grandchildren. So, I'm very excited about where we've come. It's been a wonderful experience, but I'm also at my stage in life. It's time to also start thinking future and vision.
Yeah.
And so we have plans that are being formulated and probably will be by the end of the year in the area of management continuity, and it'll be obviously around someone who we believe can continue to bring to the table what we've been able to do and accomplish.
Nice.
And as far as a stretch goal, which I like, Kendra, my attorney associate, and I are very interested in developing in expanding our closing services to beyond the Hill Country, West Texas, any area in Texas.
I would like that.
Where we in other words, yes, we'll have to go to those local venues to get title information. But as far as closing the transaction, handling the transaction, taking care of the parties, the buyers, the sellers, the realtors, everything else, to do that, perhaps in an areas where that quality of work and success ratio in getting complex transactions closed may not be there. So over the next 10 years, we want to kind of be available to do that.
I like that. You know, I've closed a handful of transactions with Hill Country Title, and I don't think I've closed a transaction unless you've been out of town that you didn't come in and personally thank every single consumer party, whether it be the buyer or the seller, and personally thank them for their business. And that has meant so much to me because sometimes, you know, as a business people, we just assume people want to use us, and we just do the business and then it's done. But you always come in and tell people thank you. And I can't tell you how much that means to me because it just closes out the transaction and you're thanking people and you're always, you know, thanking them for, you know, kind of being part of the community now, but, you know, for their business and trusting you guys. And thank you for that. That's awesome.
Lee Ann, thank you for being aware of that. One is we're very, very grateful for our business, and maybe perhaps in closing at some point, I'll share a story of what happened when we began. But number one, we appreciate the business.
You do.
I love to serve. Serving drives me.
I can see that.
Serving drives me more than accomplishing goals. Yeah. I just love to serve, and so we're very appreciative of that. And plus, I love people.
Yeah, you're good with people.
Every time I walk in the room, I meet someone, and often we end up having 10 or 15-minute conversations.
I know.
I walked into a closing today and introduced myself, thanked the people. The gentleman said, "Love your art." And I said, "But before you leave, please go walk through every office and then go upstairs to my office. In the hallway upstairs, you will see a portfolio of Nikolai Fetchin's drawings." Wow. And I could tell right away by the look at his face, he knew who Nikolai Fetchin was, who was one of the Taoist masters that immigrated over here from Russia. Yeah. And I don't know if they went up there, but he thanked me profusely for that.
See?
And so,
it's not always about, it's about a little bit more. And I think that's what I love about this community. It really is about a little bit more. It's a little bit, you know, people really do care. And
well, then also just in terms of our profession, your profession, my occupation and profession, going in and thanking those people, especially for the buyers, it's like a welcome. Oh, it's like better than a Chamber of Commerce welcome, which are always great. It's personal.
Yeah, I like it. So don't stop doing that. I appreciate it. Yeah. Do you want to tell me one story and we'll bring it around?
Oh, yes. And what reminded me of this story is what prompts me to walk into every closing. And as you know, if I'm in Fredericksburg and I'm not on a conference call that I can't get off of, I walk into every closing.
You bet.
Which also, if you think about it, when the lenders are present in the closing room, how much that means to the lenders, because it's kind of like the lender has I've always considered us an extension, an arm of the lender, because what lenders do is different than what realtors do. Yeah. You have that very close, intense, almost personal relationship that goes right through the closing. Lenders, it's different. It is. And so when I walk in and Tony Klein's in there, Marcus is in there, all the lenders are in there, and I come in, those lenders appreciate it because it's almost like, look where I brought you to close your transaction.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
important.
it's really that transaction is very important to that lender.
You bet it is.
Goodness gracious.
You bet it is.
Yeah.
And lenders are important to our industry.
Yes, they are. Yes,
So,
they are.
yeah. So about going in and thanking people for their business.
Hmm.
I was in business, started a title company, as I said, 53 years ago, June of 1970. Probably in about September of 1970. Just been open maybe 2 months, 3 months at the most.
Mm-hmm.
And a gentleman who owned local savings and loan, and I mean owned it, okay? Wasn't the president, he was the owner of the local savings and loan. And he'd been doing all his business with a title company who had been here for 30, 40 years, had all the business. And so one day he was in he knocked the door, walked in my office. He said, I want to bring you some business. And I said, oh, thank you, Mr. M. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. He said, well, it happened that the other title company was also a tenant in his S&L building who had all his business.
Gotcha.
He said, I took this file downstairs, I won't mention names, and the man looked at it and said, that's just a $10,000 transaction. Take it down to Gordon. Gordon needs business. 6 months later, I had their business.
Yes, sir.
And that taught me. And so that taught me there's no transaction too small.
Absolutely.
I ended up literally in less than a year, I had that S&L's business.
Good.
So that's why when realtors come in, I'll close with this or any other question you have. So when realtors come in and ask for a contract and you say, oh, it's just a little deal, I usually will stop them and tell them this story.
Good. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I try to tell my team in real estate, I don't even think about the numbers. I only think about the people because to everybody, what they're buying is special to them, and it's a big deal for them. So we are never going to look at numbers. I mean, we're going to pay attention for their buyer's sake, or a seller's sake. But personally, we are dealing with people, not as much transactions and numbers.
Absolutely.
And I know that about you too. So, Gordon, you're a gem, and I really appreciate you. And I'm glad that I can do real estate with you and live in this community with you. And I appreciate your family and your contribution and the history that you guys bring to Fredericksburg. So thank you.
It's our pleasure. And I mean that.
I know.
Thank you, Lee Ann.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for listening to Everything Real in Fredericksburg. Get more information about the Fredericksburg area and contact Lee Ann at labailyrealestate.com.